My wife looked at the gift our daughter had left on the rug and whispered, "Don't open it." And that was it. No hysteria, no tears, just a dry warning. I had spent my life avoiding surprises. I was terrified of surprise parties, hated open-ended movie endings, and felt nauseous at the word spontaneous. Predictability was my oxygen. And Samantha's gift, a box with a silver ribbon left on the Persian rug, was anything but predictable. "Did she call?" I asked, without looking up. Helen nodded, but said nothing. The coffee cup trembled slightly in my hand. Reflexively, I adjusted the collar of my light blue shirt, the usual one, the one I wore on Sundays, the one Helen ironed, even when I didn't ask, the one I always thought suited me best. If you feel like this story might reach you somehow, follow the channel. That way, you help me bring more stories like this, and we grow with every life we learn from. The box was there, centered on the rug, like an offering. Truth is, I hate gifts. They demand reactions, and I was never good at that. Next to me, Helen couldn't take her eyes off the box. "Is it empty?" I ventured, trying to laugh. Helen didn't laugh. "It's better not to open it." "Why not?" "Because the police are already on their way." I blinked slowly. My breath grew heavier, not from fear, but from calculation. I was trying to find some logic, some flaw in the sequence of events that I could fix. I think I knew. Did I know? I knew something rotten lay beneath that perfect ribbon. Not the stench of decay, but the sickly sweetness of lacquered resentment. Samantha wasn't the type to scream. Helen got up, walked into the kitchen. The sound of running water was the only natural movement in the house. Everything else seemed frozen. I took a deep breath, the kind I used when reviewing wills, grabbed the cup, took a sip, cold, bitter, appropriate. The reflection of the silver ribbon shimmered on the dark surface of the drink. "Stay in control," I murmured. "You're still in control." I wasn't. The Persian rug was the only spot of color in the room. Carmine red, with intricate floral and spiral designs, inherited from my father, a symbol of tradition and stability. The box challenged me like a bet laid on sacred fabric. Samantha knew exactly where to place the gift. At the center of her father's emotional memory. At the heart of the house, right where I always said, "Don't step on it with shoes." 2 years earlier, Samantha and I were in the same room. The silence between us was as thick as the rug. She cried quietly. I masked it by talking about finances. "I love you, Sam. I'm just not going to give you the inheritance now. It's irresponsible." "You love me," she repeated, coldly. "Or do you love the idea of a daughter who never needs to ask for anything?" Back to the present. Helen came back from the kitchen. "The police will be here in 10 minutes. And you're not going to tell me what she did." "You know, I don't." "Yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it." I looked at the box. There was still time to throw it out, burn it, forget it, deny it. But that would also be running. And I don't run. I organize. I stood up, walked into the office, opened the desk drawer, color-coded folders. Well, asset declaration, unsent letters, a folder with her name, Samantha Elise Ward. I hesitated before opening it. Inside, trust fund contracts, a dossier of the controlled life I was preparing for her. Proof of love, at least, in my logic. But love, I now knew, isn't something you can archive in alphabetical order. Helen called me from the living room. "Peter, they're here." I stood up, folder still in my hands, walked past the box on the rug again, kneeled in front of it. "What do you want from me, Samantha?" I shouted. "Do you want to destroy me, or to be heard?" The doorbell rang, and for the first time, I noticed the brown stain on the rug. It hadn't been there before. It was fresh, spilled coffee, or maybe dried blood. The cups were intact. No one had dropped anything, except time. Except, as the officers entered the house, I realized what had really been spilled on that floor, and no document on earth could clean that up. I always believed the worst wars were won with silence and elegance. The problem is, this time, silence had a voice and elegance came wearing a brass buckle and a court order. The younger officer, buzz-cut, eyes like he never sleeps, walked through the room like every corner was already speaking to him. The older one, on the other hand, looked uneasy. He held a notebook but didn't write, just watched me, as if trying to measure my moral density by osmosis. "Mr. Ward, did you receive a package today?" the younger one asked. I nodded toward the box with my chin. "It's right there. Did you touch it?" "Not yet." "Did anyone in the house open it?" "No. My wife advised me not to." "Why?" I didn't answer. I stayed silent, arms crossed like someone witnessing a funeral that had already been scheduled. "Instinct, maybe," I finally said. "She knows our daughter." The word "our" carried too much weight, like I was still trying to convince myself that Samantha belonged to both of us, and not just to some trauma neither of us controlled anymore. The young officer stepped closer to the box. "May I open it?" "This is my house," I said, with polite irritation. "Do what you have to do." When the ribbon was undone and the wrapping peeled away, what came out wasn't explosive, wasn't bloody, wasn't illegal. It was just devastating. To me. Letters, tapes, photos, and an envelope. Handwritten title, bold, feminine print. Instructions for after your death. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was mourning. Premature mourning. Helen looked away. I didn't. I stared at the contents the way someone stares at a painting of a tragedy. The older officer cleared his throat. "Mr. Ward, we're going to need you to come in and give a statement." "A statement? About your relationship with your daughter? That's not illegal." "No, but it might be relevant." Helen finally moved. "Can I speak to him? Alone?" The officers hesitated, but agreed. When they left the room, Helen sat beside me. The rug was still stained. The box, now open, lay there like a body after an autopsy. "You know what this means, don't you?" she asked. "I don't," I said. "It's her will," Helen said coldly. "The kind of cold that only comes after silent crying over many days. But not the legal kind. It's an emotional will, a sentence, an exposure." I ran my hands through my hair. "I just wanted to protect her." "No, you wanted to shape her. She needed structure. She needed love, without receipts, without expiration dates, without clauses." I shut my eyes, wished I could unhear it. Helen's words weren't new to me, but spoken now, in front of the open box, they echoed differently. Let's go back briefly, to Samantha's childhood. She was a quiet kid, not by nature, by strategy. She learned early that screaming didn't move me, but good grades did, perfect behavior did, silence did. Acting mature, even at age 3, worked. Love, in our house, was a form to be filled out, and she figured that out. Back to the present. I got up, went to the office, pulled out the folder labeled Samantha Elise Ward, and laid it open on the desk. Inside, trust fund clause, with release only after age 40. Life insurance note. Recommendation letter I wrote myself for her college. Performance report I requested, without telling her after she tried and failed to start a small flower shop. Control. Always control. And now, my daughter had sent me the opposite. Bound chaos. I opened one of the letters. "You always said one day you'd understand. I'm just bringing that day forward. Dad, I died to you long before I ever thought of sending this. You just never noticed because you never really looked." I braced myself on the desk. My knuckles went white from the pressure. Helen entered the office without knocking. "You need to go with them." "I know. But read the rest first. This will destroy me." Maybe that's what she wanted. For the first time in years, I wanted to say something emotional, but my tongue was too used to analytics. So I said nothing. I picked up the envelope marked instructions for after your death, opened it. Inside, one sheet of paper. Donate half the inheritance, burn the other half. Not out of anger, out of justice. I laughed. Not out of humor, out of despair. She wants to punish me. No, she wants you to feel. Feeling is dangerous. So is loving. But you missed your chance. The officers returned to the door. I closed the folder, handed it to the older officer. "I'm ready." As I left the room, I looked at the box one last time. It wasn't a gift. It was a mirror. And for the first time, I started to see myself. The first thing I thought, sitting in that worn, dull chair under the cold light of the police station, was, this chair could really be more ergonomic. Ridiculous, I know, but that's what my mind does. Clings to insignificant details, to avoid the obvious. My world was collapsing. My daughter had declared war, and I, a general of corporate battles and bulletproof wills, had no clue how to fight this new kind of war on emotional ground. "Do you know why you were brought in?" the officer asked. "To be humiliated, I imagine. To clarify things. Semantics have always fascinated me, you know. But in this case, the two words feel identical." He didn't smile. No one in there smiled. Officially, there was no crime. Just a statement filed by Samantha herself, weeks ago, apparently included with the box. Officially, I was just a father. Unofficially, I was the living proof of emotional failure. They wanted to understand the nature of our relationship. Samantha had documented in audio and writing that she had felt emotionally coerced since adolescence, that her requests for support had never been outright denied, but were always conditional, that her worth had always been measured in report cards, diplomas, and obedience. And the most painful part, she claimed she had never heard the words, "I'm proud of you," unless they were tacked onto some performance review. She was right. My eyes didn't cry, but my throat held what felt like a controlled burn. Let's go back to her. Samantha was brilliant, from a young age. Not in some exaggerated way, but in the precise way she read people. She spotted behavioral patterns before she could even multiply. Helen used to say she felt too much. I used to say she needed to toughen her mind. One time, when she was 12, she gave me a drawing, the three of us, sitting in a room, a Happy Father's Day banner above. I said, "You could have used a ruler to draw the frame straighter." She never drew from me again. That kind of thing repeats itself. It drips. And before you realize it, there's an ocean of resentment where once there were only puddles you ignored. Resentment. That's the word. And it's devastating. At the station, the younger officer looked at me with eyes that blended judgment and pity. "You never hit her, sir." "Of course not. But emotionally, is there a form for that?" He didn't respond. It was the wrong question. Or maybe the exact right one. Helen, in the beginning, tried to build bridges. "Peter, listen. She's asking for more than just money. What more could anyone ask for, besides security?" That was my logic. Security, to me, was love. But Samantha wanted something that terrified me. Affection without control. When she left home, in her early 20s, it wasn't out of rebellion. It was quiet despair. She tried opening a flower shop. It failed. She asked for help. I offered her a loan with conditions. Asked for a business plan. She said, "Forget it." And I did. Literally. But she didn't. Inside the box she sent, along with the letters and recordings, was an old worn-out cassette tape. I'd recorded it when she was 8. It was an interview. I asked questions like a reporter, and she answered with giggles. "What's your favorite color?" "Blue, like the sky in Daddy's shirt." "And what do you love doing most?" "Being near Mommy and Daddy when he's not mad." I laughed at the time. Thought it was cute. Today, I listened again, and it sounded like a cry for help I never learned to hear. The police didn't charge me. There was no crime. But the look on the investigator's face, that was a sentence. When I walked out, the morning light felt paler than usual. Helen waited in the car. She said nothing, just turned the engine on. "Do you think she'll ever forgive me?" I asked. Helen kept her eyes on the road. "I don't think forgiveness is what she's after." "Then what?" "For you to see. For you to feel. Not everything can be undone, Peter." Back home, I went straight to the office. Went through every folder with her name. Tore up one. Then another. All of them. A polite, silent kind of fury. The only kind I was capable of. In the last file, there was a photo. The two of us, in the garden. Me with a serious face. Her, with a restrained smile, almost like she was testing if she was allowed. On the back, in her handwriting, "One day, maybe you'll understand that being strong doesn't mean not feeling. It means allowing the pain to exist, without trying to control it." That night, I slept on the couch. Not as punishment, but because the bedroom felt too full of questions I wasn't ready to answer, not even beside someone who already knew them. The stain on the rug was still there, darker now, more permanent, like an inheritance. The next morning, I placed the inheritance folder in the fireplace. It burned fast. Old paper. It looked sturdy, But all it takes is the right spark, and everything falls apart. Helen watched from the doorway, holding a mug of tea. She didn't say anything, didn't praise me, didn't even question it. She just sipped the silence with the patience of someone who waited far too long to see it happen. I expected to feel relief, but what came was a meticulous emptiness, as if I'd erased years of myself without sweeping the dust. Then, I sat in the living room. The rug was still there, so was the stain, and the box, open. The papers now organized into small piles Helen had sorted the night before. She always knew how to organize other people's emotions, just never mine. That day, I tried something unlikely for me. I listened. I put on the headphones, pressed play on the recordings Samantha had left. It was her voice, adult calm, almost clinical. "Hi, Dad. If you've gotten this far, congratulations. That's already more than I expected. I want to explain some things, not so you'll change. It's too late for that. But so that, at least once, you'll listen without interrupting." Interrupting. Yes. Interrupting had always been my Olympic sport. I grew up trying to fit your frame, the ideal daughter, the perfect student, but there's no space for pain in that role. And when I needed you, not with spreadsheets, but with skin, you weren't there, physically present, emotionally absent. I know you think you did everything right, but that's exactly the problem. I paused the recording, went to the office, took our photo down from the shelf, opened the frame, removed the picture. It was a duplicate. I didn't even remember that. I left the empty frame on the desk. A visual metaphor I finally understood. Back in the living room, I resumed the tape. When you refused to help with the flower shop, I understood that you didn't see me as an adult, just as a flawed extension of yourself. I didn't want flowers. I wanted the chance to fail without having to apologize for existing. She coughed on the tape. A small sound, but human, and it hurt. The box isn't a trap, Dad. It's just the only way to make you listen. The inheritance. Do whatever you want. But know this. Your legacy to me isn't the money. It's what you never said. I paused. The room was dark. Evening had fallen without me noticing. The first thing I thought was, I should turn on a light. The second was, maybe it's better to stay in the dark. I went to the bedroom. Helen was reading. I laid down beside her. "You knew all of this?" I asked. She turned the page. "Not all of it, but I felt it. Why didn't you tell me sooner? You didn't listen. And now you're listening. But it might be too late." I didn't fall asleep easily. I had a dream. Samantha as a child, hiding behind the living room curtain, listening in on one of my phone calls. I was saying, "I can't go. I've got a meeting. Tell Sam we'll celebrate later." She covered her ears, crying silently. I woke up sweating, went back to the living room. The box was still there. So was the stain. And that's when I saw it. Something had shifted. A folder that hadn't been there before, or that I hadn't noticed. I opened it. Inside the drawing, that one. The one with the Happy Father's Day banner, with crooked lines. But now, something was written on the back. "If you found this, it's because you finally decided to look." Her plan was simple. Not to expose a crime, but to expose a void. Her plan was to make me see myself, not as a father, not as a provider, but as a man, and flawed. It was the cruelest strategy, and the fairest, because she didn't destroy me with screams. She dismantled me with memory. The next day, I went to the bank, canceled the trust fund, donated half. The other half still sits there, in legal limbo. Maybe I'll burn it, maybe I won't. I still don't know. But that day, I came home carrying a new weight, not of guilt, of awareness. Helen was waiting for me on the porch. "And now?" she asked. "Now?" I cleaned the rug. I went inside, knelt down, scrubbed the stain. It didn't come out. Because some things can't be cleaned, but they must be touched. With your hands, with your soul, with what remains. There were no more calls, no messages, no sign that she knew what I was doing, or that it mattered. The silence that remained wasn't empty. It was filled with everything we never said. Helen started walking more slowly around the house. Her steps echoed through the living room, as if measuring the distance between who we were before the box and who we became after. One afternoon, I saw her shadow standing at the office door. Do you want to tell me what you're going to do with the money that's left? I'm still deciding. She already decided for you. I know. It wasn't sarcasm. It was exhaustion. I was tired of fighting a plan that had already won. The real conflict was never about inheritance. It was about identity. Samantha didn't just want a father. She wanted to be a daughter, with everything that means. Being heard, being held, being disagreed with through love, not rules. But I gave her contracts, signatures, goals, and now, alone with the emptiness that remained, I had to face what I had created. That week, I decided to reorganize the living room, remove the symbolic weight of the rug, move the furniture, change the crime scene of the emotional collapse. As I dragged the sideboard, I found something, an old notebook full of childish notes. She must have been around 10. A folded page, shaky handwriting, things my dad said today. Finish your homework first. Don't spill. Watch the carpet. That's not a reason to cry. 4 lines. For invisible slaps. I stayed crouched there, staring at the paper for too long. Helen walked by and stopped behind me. You knew she kept these things. I didn't even know she wrote. You thought you knew your daughter. I thought love was silence. Helen crouched beside me, rested her hand on my shoulder. For the first time in weeks, I felt her touch as a wordless forgiveness. You lost her, she said. I lost her the moment I tried to shape her by force. And now, there's nothing left. The doorbell rang. The sound seemed louder than usual. Instinctively, I looked at the box, still there, emptied, but present, as if part of her still lived in that cardboard. I opened the door. An envelope, no sender. Her name, handwritten, for when he's ready. I closed the door slowly, sat down in the armchair, looked at Helen. She nodded with a slight gesture. I opened the envelope. Inside a single sheet, a note. I don't wish you harm. I just wanted you to understand my pain. Our distance was our story. You ignored every chapter. I let the paper fall onto my lap. She wrote this before the box. She wrote it for years, Helen said. She was just waiting for the moment when you'd be able to read it. I went to the hallway mirror. I looked at myself. Truly looked. Not like someone fixing a collar or smoothing their hair, but like someone trying to find out who they really are. Samantha didn't want legal justice. She wanted poetic justice, and she was getting it by finally capturing my attention, showing me that my punishment wasn't being hated. It was being remembered as absence. I went back to the living room, sat down and stared at the rug. I still hadn't replaced it. We need a new rug, I said to Helen. Why? Because I don't want to cover this stain. She nodded, picked up her phone, started browsing for stores. I stayed there, in the room with everything it held. The phone rang at 7:03 p.m. No one usually calls at that hour. At this stage in life, calls are rare. Text messages solve everything. But this call stirred something old. Peter Ward, a woman's voice asked. Yes, I'm calling from St. Helena Hospital. Is Miss Samantha Elise Ward your daughter? I turned to Marble. Sir. I couldn't speak. She's my daughter, yes. She came by yesterday and left a sealed envelope for you. Clear instructions. Said you'd understand. Is she okay? We don't know. This was left at the front desk. You spoke to her. One of our staff did. She dropped it off today. I rushed to the car. Forgot my coat. Helen asked if she should come. No. Are you sure? No. Then go. I got there quickly. Found the attendant, who handed me the envelope with excessive care, as if it were explosive. Back in the car, I held the envelope in my hands. This time, no letter, just a flash drive, and a note in red marker. Watch. At home. Alone. Back in the living room, I plugged the flash drive into the laptop. Helen respected the message. I stayed alone. The image was simple. Samantha, sitting on a park bench. A garden in the background. Maybe the hospitals. She looked into the camera. She didn't look happy. A bit worn down. If you're watching this, maybe you've reached the end. Or the beginning. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know I'm tired of waiting for you to see me. She took a deep breath. Dad, you're good with numbers. So here are a few. 8 years waiting to hear I'm proud of you. 5 attempts to talk about my depression. 2 flower shops opened, closed, ignored. 2 times I thought about disappearing for real. 1 father who never noticed. My heart beat with sadness, not just guilt, collapse. But I'm not here to blame. I'm here to close this chapter. This video is my goodbye, because I'm tired of trying to fit into houses where I was never wanted. Tired of frames that never suited me. Tired of rugs that never said anything to me. She gave a bitter smile, the kind that only forms when you realize no one's going to save you, so you learn to save yourself. I'm going away. For a while, at least. Not to punish you. I've given up on that, but to protect myself. If one day you want to find me, maybe you will. Look inside the thing you've avoided your whole life, feeling. The image froze, then went dark. I closed the laptop, stayed still. The empty box, the stained rug, her voice echoing. I got up, opened the window. The night air came in, smelling of wet earth. Helen came down the stairs. So, she's gone. Gone. Where to? It took me all this time to finally see her. For her, it might have felt like an eternity. I nodded. I went back to the living room. Everything felt strange. The walls, the frames, the silence. And suddenly, I understood what Samantha had been trying to tell me all these years, that my love was a vault, and she never had the code. The next day, I went to the notary office. I filed a new document. Not a clause, not a legal addendum, a real will, a letter. To Samantha Elise Ward, my daughter. Inherit nothing you don't wish to carry. Burn anything that weighs on you. And know, the love I failed to give you still lives. Clumsy, but real. I signed it in my slow handwriting. Left it with the lawyer. She didn't understand. She didn't have to. When I got back home, Helen was on the porch. She looked at me as if to ask, "Are you done?" "Not yet," I replied, without her needing to say a word. "Are you going to look for her?" "Yes." "Now, maybe that's the price." "The price of what?" "Of loving too late." She stepped closer, held me, let me rest against her, and for the first time in decades, I let my body feel the weight. There was a time when I believed inheritance was what you left in vaults. Now, I know the heaviest things are the unspoken silences, the gestures you refused to make, the I love us swallowed like poison out of fear of seeming weak. Helen noticed the change in me before I could admit it. My movements became slower, not because of age, because of care. I began to notice things. The sounds, the creak of the cabinet door, the way the morning light hit the stairs, the absence of a voice, even one that used to challenge me. I started walking in the mornings, without hurry, no headphones, letting my steps take me to the park bench where Samantha had recorded the video. Not because I thought she'd come back, but because, for the first time, I could bear the emptiness. With deep melancholy, but with dignity. I began to feel very cold. It was cold. Autumn was arriving. Leaves on the ground, like failed versions of plans that never bloomed. One of those days, I sat on the bench, alone. Next to me a young woman was reading a book. It wasn't Samantha, but she wore the same crooked ponytail Samantha had at 17. I smiled for no reason, and for the first time, the smile wasn't a social formality, it was memory. I thought about getting up, moving on, forgetting, but I stayed. There, with the discomfort. With what was left. A child ran by, tripped, fell, cried. The mother came rushing, knelt, and said something that cut through me like an invisible blade. "It's okay, sweetheart. It was just a fall. I'm here." Simple, but the kind of phrase that never came out of my mouth naturally. I went back home, came in through the front door, went straight to the old office. The folders were gone. Now it was just a room with books, silence, and an empty frame. On the opposite wall, I hung the drawing I found days earlier, the crooked one, with the Father's Day banner. No frame, no glass, raw, the way it should have always been. Helen walked by the door. "That's new. It's old, but now it has a place. And you, still trying to find mine." I went to the kitchen, made tea. A new habit, calmer than coffee, more patient with waiting. I went upstairs to the other room that no one used anymore. There were old boxers there, of photos, of objects. things I had tucked away myself. I found a cassette tape, not the one she sent me. Another. One I recorded for her on the day she was born. You've arrived, little one. I'm your father, and I promise to protect you. I heard my own voice. Younger. I thought I knew things, that I was wise. More desired to do right than true understanding of what love is. Yesterday I tried writing a letter, just in case I somehow learn where she is. Samantha, if I could see you now, I wouldn't say anything at first. I'd just let you talk. I'd want you to say it all, just to hear your voice. To scream, if you needed to, and nothing else. Then, I'd say just this. I'm sorry, not for being imperfect, but for pretending I wasn't, for all the pretending. I'm sorry, for confusing strictness with love, for silencing your pain with my logic. In a very strange way, you managed to teach me, maybe too late, but I learned. I learned that I was never the wise man I thought I was. Help me, I'm trying. I love you. Only now, I'm learning what that really means. I folded the letter, put it in the nightstand drawer. I don't know if she ever read it, but writing it made me feel better. It's saved for her. The house feels lighter now. I donated the rug. I'm used to the cold floor now. I've learned to walk without too much protection. Sometimes, I hear the gate. My heart still races, but it's never her. I wish she'd call. Helen is still by my side. But now, she looks at me differently, like someone who sees a man who finally arrived, even though he'd been there all along. My legacy will no longer be a fund with clauses. It will be a love that, even though I'm still learning how to give, weighs less on me now. And maybe, one day, if she returns, it will be light enough for her. And if she doesn't, at least she'll know that this father, this man, finally learned how to feel. She changed me completely. And sometimes, the cruelest gift is also the truest one. Thank you for staying with me and listening this far. Your attention is a gift. Did these minutes mean something to you? Then please, follow the channel. Every click from you is a push that helps me keep bringing stories that truly stay with us.